Hi, my name is Larry Cole. I started going to the boys club down on Villa Street when I was 8 years old. And that's when I met a gentleman by the name of Chuck Bradford, who was the PE director. In fact, he was the only African American that was on staff during that time. At the time, there were two boys clubs, one on Villa Street, and another one was over by the I can't remember exactly the address, but you know where the old Fedco was? Yeah, it was there. And then they moved to 2020 North Fair Oaks years later. Well, it's very interesting because people don't realize, but John Muir High School was on the edge of Pasadena, and at that time, the white kids from La Cañada was attending John Muir High School, and the kids from semi up north, further east, all went to Pasadena High School. And back in 1963, we went to school, and all the white kids had disappeared from La Cañada because they opened up La Cañada High School. But basically at that time, John Muir High School was basically, the majority was black with a few Hispanics and a few whites. But you have to realize and understand, it was a thing called busing. And you know, it was different districts, and they had set up the different districts and stuff. But what people don't really realize is that there was a gentleman, I won't say his name right now, but he was in charge of all the athletics in Pasadena, and I think PHS got tired of getting whipped up, so they started looking at the district and at the different junior high schools and seeing that certain kids were very outstanding, and so they started tracking their addresses, and the next thing you know, kids that almost lived across the street from John Muir High School was attending Pasadena High School all of a sudden. Well, when the boys club finally moved up to Fair Oak Street, because then I was I believe I was in the 9th grade, and I'd go there every day. I mean, it was, first of all, kept me off the streets, number one. They had a great staff there, you know, with the leadership of Chuck Bradford, and he would take the time to talk to us, and you know, we were very competitive, so you know, we played a lot of sports there, but they taught us other things like arts and crafts. They taught us games room skills like shooting pool, ping pong, table tennis, hockey, and different sports like that. And then we also went places and played against other boys clubs, so we saw the diversity of different other boys clubs and how they operated. And so I'll never forget, I think I was in my junior year, and I just made a joke to Chuck. I said, "You really get paid to play with us all day long?" He said, "Well, it's more than just playing with you guys." I said, "Well, I can do your job." He said, "Well, maybe one day, you know, you can take my seat." And when I was drafted, unfortunately, in 1968, and had to go over to Vietnam, and once I came back from Vietnam, I went to Pasadena City College for one semester, graduated, went to the University of California, Riverside, got my degree, and came back to the boys club and retired almost 40 years later. I think the thing that people don't realize, and that's a great, a great number, a great point that you bring out, and that is 40 years. You know, for you to be able to see a young man or a young lady, 8, 9 years old, and to see them graduate from high school, you might have been able, or fortunate enough to attend their graduation. and then see them maybe 10 years later and say, hey, I've got a couple of kids or whatever else. It's hard to describe because it's almost like you're cultivating a plant, and you see this plant grow and blossom, and it's just a tremendous feeling. And they still have that respect and love for you. And one of the conversations that they always talk about is the Boys Club and their experience. And so it's just so rewarding and self-fulfilling. I can tell you from my experience how helpful it was. So I knew that I was trained, to operate a certain way. It was more than just a quote-unquote boys club. Our philosophy was it's a home away from home, and it's just one big family. And our thing was to make sure, number one, that you were safe, that you were going to be in a good environment in terms of inside the club. I tell people all the time, I can't help that our address was 2020 North Fair Oaks. I'll never forget that address as long as I ever live. I'll never forget the fact that when they look at it geographically, it was supposedly in the lower class area, almost which they call the ghetto. But we all lived there, so we all took care of each other, and that was the beauty of what I enjoyed about you guys. How people you guys looked after each other, and you had each other's back. You guys were very competitive, but at the same time, you were one big happy family. Well, I think the first thing and the most important thing, you got to have commitment. And I really thought that I was passing the torch over to a couple young guys that were ready, that was prepared, that came up to the ranks just like I did. But unfortunately, there was a difference in the philosophy of the administration and the board. They were looking to go a different way, which I think made it a problem. I'm overwhelmed, number one. Different guys from different eras, are constantly calling me, male and female, from here to Texas, Cleveland, Hawaii. You'd be surprised, because you guys are all spread out all over. I'm humbled, and I'm honored to have, been able to serve you. Now, as far as retirement is concerned, yes, I retired from the Pasadena Boys Club as well as 5 acres, because you got to put 5 acres in there, because I learned the mental aspect of having problems like being defiant, anger management, a little bit of schizophrenic, whatever, and learning how to help those young people, set up interventions to help them. But right now I've taken on some new challenges, and I'm now in the business world, trying to learn the business world, and because I got some grandkids that I know that need to go to college and want to experience some things. So I'm still pretty active. You've got to be dedicated. I have to be honest with you. You guys, a lot of times you guys saw me at the Boys Club. You might have saw me at the Rose Bowl doing a little security work or whatever. I had to sometimes do a little extra to compensate. But but the salaries are a lot different now. They're a lot better. And I think that with that being said, I think that to me, I've seen guys make a whole lot more money than me, but they've always said, man, you seem to be so happy in terms of what you're doing. That Boys Club was not a job. It was a way of life. And to see you guys grow up, male, female, and become so productive it makes me feel good because I just know that that boys club had just a little something, to do with it.